Thank you, everyone. First of all, welcome, of course. Congratulations on being part of the program. I know the guys have been putting in a lot of effort to get it across the line, so well done, and welcome to Melbourne, whoever's from interstate and that sort of thing. I'm sure it's going to be a big few days. So today, we're doing a little bit of cooking and a bit of talking. So I think the main thing is it's about you guys. This program, pretty much pick my brain, whatever you want to ask or say. That's sort of how the conversation can start. Today, I want to show two of the dishes from the Thai menu. You'll see these on the menu tomorrow when you guys all eat at Atlas, which will be great. I just want to talk a bit about my career, what I've done, where I started or anything. Anyone's got any questions, anyone wants to know anything, just go for it, just shout out, go, so it's all open. I actually did my apprenticeship here out of all places, so it was very weird to be back. I was like, fuck, I don't know where I am. I started 10 years ago, so I didn't finish school. I was working at the Stoke House in St Kilda, so that was a great sort of first job. Just downstairs there, so they had like a pumping restaurant. It was really busy, and on a Sunday you could do 300 covers for lunch. I think that's a good experience for when you're starting out. It was good to sort of finish school, and I wanted to follow my passion of becoming a chef. So I always sort of knew that that's the direction I wanted to go. So I went overseas to London, and I think this is my biggest piece of advice, was to do some free experience. So all you guys have taken the plunge and have come travelled from wherever you've come from today to be here, and I think that's it's a big step in the right direction for young chefs. It just shows a lot of interest when you go and put things in your own time or do extracurricular activities. So I was 16 and I went and emailed restaurant Gordon Ramsay, the 3-star in London, and just said, can I come and spend a month in the kitchen? And they said, yep, straight away. I was actually quite surprised, to be honest. I thought they were just not going to respond. But so I went and did that experience, and it was just it was a real eye-opener. I was 16 at the time. I literally was just in the corner picking chervil the whole time. It was fucking pathetic, but whatever. It was a good experience, and it was great to see, from where I'd been, to seeing what the top end of the restaurant world was like, to see that sort of environment and the energy they work at. It was a really eye-opening experience, and something I'll always remember as one of my sort of greatest things I sort of did. It really opened my eyes to what I wanted to do. So I came back and I applied for a job at Vue de Monde in Melbourne, and so they said no. And then I went back again and asked them again for the job the next day, and they said no again. And then I went back again and I said, I'll do a trial, just whatever, I just want to take any job. So they said, all right, fine, do a week's trial. So I did the week's trial and I got the job on the second day. And they literally said to me, we're not hiring you because you have any skill, it's just because you want to be here. So that was a great step in the right direction. So I worked at Vue de Monde for 2 years, doing most of my apprenticeship there. And that was it was a great experience to see, once again, when you're younger, to go and work in a place like that. It was just a really, it's not what I'd want to do now, but it's what at the time, it was a great sort of foundations. They work in a very, they're really organised and stuff, which is the opposite of me, but it was a good sort of learning curve. And then from there, I went and worked in Sydney. So, another thing I've really enjoyed about the career of being a chef is that you can go and travel overseas and, not overseas, interstate or overseas, and work. You can just rock up to another place, and anyone who's not from Melbourne, if you had a great time here, you could be working in Melbourne next year or whenever. And that's there's not many careers, I think, where you can be as sort of fluid like that and just go and do what you want. So that was, it's a great experience. First time outside of home and living in Sydney, it was it was awesome actually. It really learned a lot. I worked at Mark, and they were another sort of cutting edge restaurant, doing it's mainly set menu, only set menu, and then they had a sort of lunch thing as well. And that was different again. So, it was nice. Vue de Monde was a much bigger operation, and there was a lot going on. That I think upstairs in Rialto there might have been close to maybe 70 staff or something. Where Mark was almost like a small family restaurant compared to that. There was 5 in the kitchen, there was 4 on the floor, and it was just the same standard of food, but the work ethic and stuff was a completely different way. So I learned a lot there, and I really liked it. I went overseas and worked in London for 6 months, did a period over there, and I thought that was a good experience, to go and live in London. I think I had to get the party side of me out of me as well, if I'm honest. So that's sort of all I did, but that was fun. When I think once again, you're young and you want to go and experience something, so why not? And then I came back, and this was a good sort of career. An interesting thing I learned was, sometimes your best experiences don't always come from the places that you expect them to. So I went and worked with a chef I'd worked with at View de Monde at Clayton Bowls Club. So he'd opened a sort of what I'd call a semi-fine dining restaurant in what is really shit bowls club. And like they had pokies out the front, they had like a stabbing once, like it was, it's what you don't want to be there. It was quite depressing. But it was, in this restaurant with this really random interior overlooking a bowling green, and everyone's like 75 and like they've been there for like 40 years. It was really, like we were so in their space, but it was a great opportunity to learn and, to see something. I didn't have any expectations when I was working there. I thought, oh God, what's this going to be like? And, we had a lot of fun with what we were doing, and it was a really small team. There was only 3 of us. And then we had 2 on the floor, and, we could do up to 60 covers doing a set menu, and it was only up to 5 courses, but it was a good learning curve of how you can apply the thinking of like a fine dining restaurant or something that is a bit, the sort of thinking that you learn at View de Monde to something that's in a completely different environment, and you can still give a great experience to the guests. So serving high standards of food, but it's, semi-shit service, not very nice decor and interior, so that's what it was. Then after that, I did a really big overseas trip. So I went away for 9 months, and I spent 6 of those months in a different country each time, so 1 month, and I'd stage at a place. So I just picked places, once again, just emailed them in advance and just said, I want to come and work and experience. So that whole trip of 9 months, I was able to eat, I was able to stage at different places. So I went to South Mexico, North America, and even Europe. And it was just it was a really eye-opening experience because I got to work in a kitchen with guys, spend a month with them. Every place I went was different. So, some places they would let you get really involved. There was one experience I'll never forget in Mexico, like doing the second day of my stage, doing the sauce section in this restaurant, and they're on the world's 50 best list, and I was doing the restaurant service, and they're all speaking Spanish, and I was never been more confused in my entire life. But it was just one of those experiences that you wouldn't get if you didn't put yourself in the situation. I think for me what cooking is all about. And so I went and did that, and that's how I came up with the idea for Atlas, my restaurant. From doing, going overseas, traveling, learning something in each destination, and then, moving on to the next place, but building a bit of a repertoire of ideas. And, I just like that continuous learning, and I obviously like traveling, as I've done a lot of it. So I came back and worked in Sydney at Fire Door, and I had I really enjoyed the experience of working there, but it was, at the time, I probably didn't see the value of it. If you come to Atlas, when you come tomorrow night, you'll see everything is like wood fire set up. It's pretty amazing, our kitchen. But at the time when I was working at Fire Door, I thought, oh, fuck, I don't really like this. It's not really for me. And then but in hindsight, looking back on the experience, it was one of the best kitchen experiences I had. So I moved from Sydney back to Melbourne and opened Atlas. So it took about 4 months to build. We took over like a really derelict building. It was so bad. It used to be an Indian burger shop called Get That India. And it was, I know. Yeah, it actually, The Age did an article, the worst restaurant names in Australia history, and that was up there. So I was pretty proud to be the new owner of Get That India. And so we took us 4 months to build, like really interesting journey, learning, that's the other thing. It's not just about the food anymore. Like once you start going down the path of opening a business or starting a restaurant or whatever, like just all the little things you don't think about, like, I didn't even know like what an upholsterer did. I didn't know, I didn't know the plumbing. I thought they just cleaned toilets for some reason, but they do gas. It was just like, fuck. But, learning all those little bits and pieces and, learning the hard way, very costly mistakes, a lot of it. But, that comes with the territory. So we opened Atlas after 4 months of work, and we were doing Vietnamese cuisine. So it was our first one. The first night we did like a 40 guest friends and family event. It was the worst night of my life by a mile. I thought after the service, I thought I've made the biggest mistake ever doing this and trying. So that was on a Saturday, and we actually opened on the Tuesday to the paying public. So we changed the whole menu, spent the whole weekend there fixing all the things that had gone wrong. And we opened, and then we had the initial period of opening where it's exciting, but people are not sure, do we go, do we not? It's always that funny when you're unknown, it's always that weird period. So I was like, shit, I don't really know what we're doing. And then you're a bit busy some nights, you're not the next. It was really, I don't know, it was a really like tough time because you just don't know what to expect. And it was, it was definitely one of the harder months we've had, because that was just wrapping your head around everything, but you sort of got staff, you got to pay, and all those different bits and pieces. And then we got our Good Food Guide review. So that came out on the Tuesday. It was I think it was week 5, and we got a hat off the bat. So that was like the biggest thing for me, was when we got that, that's when everything just changed, because it meant that, all of a sudden we had the respect of other restaurants and, other people from those reviews. I don't pay much attention to the reviews, but it's really important at the start when you're very unknown. That sort of thing can help, just to drive people to come and try it, and then if they have a great experience, they'll tell their friends, and then you don't need the reviews anymore, to be honest. But so that was good. And so since then we've done Vietnamese, Israeli, Korean, Mexican, Peruvian, French, Brazilian, and now Thai. So it's been a long journey. This is we've got our 9th cuisine coming up next, which is going to be China. And in between, I've opened another place called Colours Kitchen, which is like Mediterranean vegetarian fast food. So really simple. We have one spot next to Atlas, and then I'm opening another one in the CBD at Melbourne Central. So it's been a big few years for sure, and definitely a nice learning curve. So and now we're here. I'm going to China next week. So then the next cuisine starting in May is Chinese, and going into that colder period, of winter, it's going to be, I think, a really good cuisine to choose. And so each time I've gone on the trips, it's always like go to markets, go to restaurants, do a bit of pre-work that gets done, as in like I'll always do a lot of recipe, reading recipe books and all that sort of stuff, a lot of study, and then going with the idea of what I actually want to learn while I'm over there. So it's it's a fun concept, but it can definitely be quite challenging when you have to come back and actually put something together, and you don't want to piss people off, because it can happen pretty easily. Yeah. Cuisine is most challenging. I'd say that the last one we did before this, which was Brazil, it was probably one of our best, as in the standard of the cuisine we did was very high. I think it was and it was really well received. But the challenge is there's not like a basis to go off. For example, like Brazilian cuisine is made up of like lots of different things, but there's not really any like set sauces or marinades or techniques that are just like 100% Brazilian. So it took like a lot of sort of almost like creation that way, where some of the other ones, say like Thai food, you've got a million things that you could get ideas from, and that's why like the Thai menu that we've done, I've enjoyed it, because it's meant that we can just be creative and like focus on the food, where Brazil it was more like, fuck, we need to really think about this and do it properly. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, like very good question. So we literally, when we finish the cuisine, we'll finish on a Saturday and we'll start the next one on a Tuesday. And like that first week is always a disaster. Like I've done 8 of them now and not one of them has gone well. But you forget about all the little things like the dry store, or all the plates, and even the wine list we changed. So that's the hardest bit. So like when we went from Brazilian to Thai, like all of a sudden you need all different spices or sauces or whatever ingredients, and it's just like going out and sourcing all those things. Again, it feels like, and I've never worked anywhere that's done Asian food, so it's like, all right, now we're gonna go find new suppliers. Go to Springvale. Springvale is like an outer Melbourne suburb. It's like big Vietnamese and Thai community out there, so they've got like the best Asian ingredients, and sort of doesn't really go via the market. Like I feel like they have growers just for them. So going out there and then asking our other suppliers how we can get things. But yeah, it's definitely one of the bigger challenges. Yeah.
When you finish going through all the events, usually just going to cycle back to
I hope I'm dead before then, to be honest. I think I worked it out. I think I'd have to be 78 to have done them all. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you often change the equipment in the restaurant to accommodate the new cuisines?
Yeah, definitely like more like the loose fitting items. Like the kitchen is wood fired, so we've got like a hearth, wood fire oven, and then these grills. So we always predominantly cook with those. Like to cook with gas for me is like odd. We don't actually have any gas. And we have induction cooktops. But yeah, we have to like sourcing say woks or mortar and pestle, all these sorts of things. Each time there's certain elements always that make up a cuisine, and like the techniques that we sort of want to start doing as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you traditional of the cuisine that you do, or do you make your own?
I definitely make my own. Like it's really inspired by. I think my philosophy with doing this concept is that there is like Thai restaurants in Melbourne who've been cooking Thai food their whole life. So it's like if I try and compete with them, it's not very smart because they know what they're doing. So it's like we have to be more inspired by or have a bit of fun with the cuisine more so than actually going. So when as you'll see tomorrow night or even today when we're making a few things, the flavours and stuff are there. Like the curry is probably one of the closest to what you'd actually expect sort of dishes as to what you'd find in a Thai restaurant. But the tom yum soup that I'm going to make is just, I think it's an idea of tom yum without being, it's got the flavours and the sort of heritage or the idea of the dish, but it's served in a completely new way. And that for me makes it sort of our own thing. Yeah.
How do you other chefs handle? Have you had to struggle?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like.
Do you often have changeover in
Yeah, no, we've had a bit of turnover. Definitely when we first started, that was not intentional though. But like the chefs have gotten a lot like better at it, and I think the biggest thing for me is I used to be really fucking unorganised, and now I'm organised. So that was like the biggest issue in the past. So whenever we changed, I'd be like, oh no, we'll work it out, whatever, and then we wouldn't work it out. There'd be customers arriving, we going like not a chance for opening. But they've definitely become to adapt. And one thing I don't know, like for all you guys as apprentices, I think that's one hot topic at the moment is like how like staff and what's going on. So for us, one thing I've done is I have a really good core team. So I've got 5 guys in the kitchen. All of them have been there for over a year, and one of them has been there the whole time. And the way I do that is I do like a 4-day working week and 3 days off every week for them. And then we only open 5 services a week. So we do 5 nights and that's it. So it's like a pretty fun place to be. And I just try and make a sort of good atmosphere. So then coming into those menus and stuff, we do spend a lot, as we are sort of pretty relaxed with what we're doing, we do spend a lot of time now preempting it and trying to like plate the dishes up, taste them, test them, recipes, photos, all that sort of stuff. But like no matter how far we've gone with getting organised, it's always been a disaster. At the back. To be honest, I choose a place I want to go and visit. It's like very selfish, but at the same time, like I've always wanted to go to China, and now I'm like, sweet, I'm going to China. So, yeah. Well, when I worked at that Clayton Bowls Club, the place with the pokies, I really liked the how we worked there. So it was it was like a fine dining restaurant, but there was no real bullshit. It was fast paced, and it was it was actually very chaotic, but I think I enjoy that sort of side of it. So for me, I felt that if I stuck with the one menu, it might get a little bit sort of easy to just get comfortable. So I obviously like had the concept of the idea and the travel. So I just sort of put them together, and I think it keeps it very exciting. And the more we go on, I'm like, oh, far out. Like every time it's coming, like it always comes around quickly, and you're never sort of organised, and it's like shit. But I've liked the whole process of being forced to change. Like, I'm sure at the places where you guys work, sometimes someone puts a dish on and it's awesome and it's hard to take it off. Where for us, it's like no matter how good something is, it has to change at some point. And I think that keeps it really fresh. And I think that's another reason why I've been able to have a good crew of guys stay for a long time, is because there's always something new to sort of look at or learn. Where I think other places, if they're not too into changing things, it can definitely get a bit stagnant sometimes, and everyone gets a bit comfortable. Yeah. Good question. What have we? I'd say when we did the Korean menu, actually, like learning how to make like kimchi and stuff correctly, that was like all the fermentation. I'd done a little bit of it before, but nothing too much. And it was just like, because you started working with like, obviously it's always a fresh natural product, but once you started like leaving it outside, adding things like sugar and fish sauce, leaving it at certain temperatures, that was like, the results varied a lot. So that to get that right, that was probably one of the hardest. Like, I have so much respect. Like anytime I go overseas now and see someone doing like anything with fermentation, I'm like, well done. Like to make that consistently is very, very challenging. At the back. Yeah, definitely. There's things that like you'd love to see go on. Like, obviously things that are in season always come first and foremost. But it's like, sometimes when we've got like specialty stuff, it's been really annoying to sort of get it consistently. And that's been like one of the real challenges. Like as you're obviously running a busy place, like you sort of need, you want to do the same, the same thing as you, with the ingredient that you served yesterday, tomorrow. And it's sort of, that's been a real challenge. But like, I think as we've gotten better at it, we've sort of learned where to go and where to look. Yeah, and I think we've got like a much bigger supplier range now. But that's another thing. I think even we work with this organic farm in Main Ridge, just down in the Mornington Peninsula, and they are awesome to work with. But they're like a small organic farm, so it's just very challenging to, for them, week in and week out, everything's always different. So my goal for our next menu is to put one of my chefs on like directly with them, and then have like a market update each week from them, like so what they've got, what they're going to bring us, and then the chef will be in charge of actually like liaising with them, because we want to use all their stuff. And sometimes for them, something will be going to seed or whatever, and it's still like desirable for us to use, but they will look at it and go, oh no, they wouldn't use it. So that's another big thing. But all those like little steps, they just take time and organisation.
The business side of it is how did you go about like running a business so young, like financial wise,
I think I was lucky that I had no fucking idea. Yeah, like, because I don't reckon I would have done it otherwise. Like it was my brother and me opened it together. So he'd had previous business success, and then he was like, "Yep, great." So that was really helpful, and I think that most people need to look elsewhere for investment to start a restaurant, because it is an expensive exercise, and there's a lot of costs. Like just even like the kitchen fit out. Like you look around at all this stuff, you think, oh, it is what it is. But every just little element adds up so much, and it's really weird when people start saying, oh, it's only 10 grand or something. You're like, fucking seriously, don't say that again. But that's what starts to happen. So, and with the business side of it, like it's something that I would suggest anyone open a restaurant probably do actually have a bit of an understanding of it. Like I didn't even understand like how to pay an invoice before, or like like any taxation, superannuation rules. I did not we had no idea. Literally, it was actually ridiculous to think we operated for a while. Because it was just not, it's so unprofessional and just not, but that's sort of like what it is. And I think like diving into it and having a crack though, I've been able to then go and learn a lot of those things. But for sure, the advice would be go and, just read a book before you open on accounting, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So Lennox from Viador in Sydney, who I worked with, me and him have remained just such great friends. And then Clinton as well from the Bowls Club, one of my also great friends. And those guys, like you just sort of, I think when we opened, one thing that surprised me about the industry is how helpful so many people were. Like we had a lot of chefs come in for dinner, especially like older guys. Like we had Ben Shuri in, they had the Attica Star Party at Atlas, and he's like, here's my number, you ever need anything, any question, take it, call me, and that sort of thing. And like, that's what surprised me, because I felt like, I had my mentors who were always helpful. Like when we were, especially in the building stage, like the amount of questions I had for them because they'd done it before, that was like absolutely key. But once we're open, then I also had mentors coming from other places, and it doesn't, for them, they want to give back and they want to ask and go, oh sweet, so the door, like if anyone's ever got questions, I know myself, someone sends me an email with a question, what should I do, or da 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 da, I'm always happy to help, because it's, I appreciate how many people had helped me when you're in that learning, like I'm still in the learning zone for sure, but when you're like just sort of getting going, and that is official. So I think, over the next few days, I'm sure you'll meet some of the other chefs and all that sort of stuff, and anyone who's got questions, like get their details and make an effort to stay in touch or whatever, and it will pay off in the end, because people, in this industry, people do want to help, especially young chefs who are serious, like people who are like, I really want to be in this industry. Chefs will have a lot of time for and give you any advice you need. So I work with this ceramicist, so she makes all our plates for the restaurant. So every time we do, we make some plates for whatever we want to make. Restaurant decor, tables and chairs, and the general look stays the same, but we always add something. So for Brazil, we got this artist in who painted these Brazilian cave paintings on the outside area. It was pretty very funny few days watching this guy do it. He was biggest. He's actually a very famous artist. God, I started the day with a glass of wine. I'm thinking, fuck, this is not going to end well, and it didn't. Yeah, it did not end well at all. But that was, we always try and do something a little, outside the box. When we started, there's the two blue lines around the whole restaurant, and they're the longitude and latitude lines. So we just to give some little subtle references to what we're doing, but I try not to get carried away too much with with changing the restaurant itself too much, because we have the actual restaurant is already beautiful. I think that if you can sort of take away from it if I add too much. Yeah.
Kitchens are such competitive places.
Yeah.
Do something 100 times, and you'll still notice differences.
Yeah.
You'll still be learning. You change the menu so much. Do you ever feel you'll be 3 months in and you're I want to do this for another 3 months, I'm just learning. Am I doing this?
Definitely, yeah. 100%. There's definitely ideas that we've had from other menus that we've wanted to explore further that have ended up in another menu in and so even though we do change so drastically, sometimes what we do doesn't. So it means that we can, we're not completely limited, but there has been ideas or things that we've learned, especially when we did Israeli cuisine, which is Middle Eastern. The flavors and stuff I learned about then, I was far out. This, you could, looking back on that menu, I feel it was a very good one, but I didn't do a tenth of what I'd do now if I did it again, and that's because I've continued to learn about it. So, but I think that's part, when we're picking up Middle Eastern countries, say we do Lebanese cuisine, then I know I'm full of ideas. Yeah.
So talking about sourcing earlier, sourcing ingredients.
Yeah.
Is there a time when you have never sourced an ingredient or has drastically changed your menu, or restricted what dishes you could put on the menu because you couldn't find the ingredient over here?
Yeah, definitely. There's in Australia, we are very lucky. You almost can find anything. Except for really random stuff. If you're looking for certain fruits or certain things at the quality you've seen them overseas. Sometimes you can get them, but it's it might just be flavourless, for example. It's well, we're not going to use that. But there's definitely been a few things we've put on the menu and we've been this is awesome, and then the next week just unavailable. So but we just have to, you can always substitute things. I'm not a strict person. If I'm always a bit we're cooking at the end of the day. I'm happy for it to be a little bit just put it together, see what happens. It's not really, I'm not a very big obviously say with dessert or pastry or something you should be, but for me with savoury food, I think that's half the fun of it, is to actually just be a little bit sort of, try and make it better than you did yesterday. Yeah.
So when your menu changes, does the position of chef in the kitchen ever change?
We have a pretty set structure, but because we have such a small kitchen, we have 4 sections. I always move people around because because we have like the grill section, and then essentially everyone else is either plating, or we have these like two little inductions. So someone might be on the inductions, just sort of, you know, warming sauces or boiling things or whatever it is. So it can, you know, it's nice just to mix people around. And also like with the wood fire cooking, like this menu actually for Thai, it hasn't been as crazy with the wood fire as we usually go, because I've found like it's just been so hot, and we don't really want to, like, it just makes the whole restaurant like so hot and uncomfortable. So it's like, all right, let's tone it back a bit. So we set up the kitchen differently for this time. But usually, yeah, like, you know, the wood fire is going to so much to learn. Everyone wants to get over there, and who hasn't done it especially, and have a go. And then working on the past and stuff's, you know, an exciting thing to like run the service, or doing pastry, or doing like the cold section. But because we're such a small team, if everyone sort of can't go everywhere, it's pretty hard. Like the only difference in, for me, like I'm obviously in charge, but then I have a sous chef who is generally the only difference between them and everyone else. They do the ordering, and then everyone else is just chef de parties. So I don't have like, for us, because we're so small, it just makes sense just to have that. And like, even if someone like, it would be a commie somewhere else, I'd take them on as a chef de party. They're in charge of a section, and it's like, they have to do it, or they're not going to work. Yeah. Oh, we might have to make room. Definitely. That's good. Yeah. So we did hummus, obviously. So we did hummus. We made pita breads like in our wood fire oven. That was a really good. That was like one of those things that making those each day that could be very different each day. Like we have a wood fire oven and cooking bread in it. And when you're cooking pita bread, that you obviously want it to puff so that it's like the air pocket in the middle. But like some days you'd put it on, it's not rising correctly, or they're rising too quickly, or they're burning. And obviously the wood fire oven heat is, you don't just press. It's not a combi oven fresh start. So that was, that was an exciting thing to make. And then we did like a what else did we do? We did like a lot of salads. So we did like a course where we'd like just cover the table and all these different salads, like almost like small meze plates of just things that we liked. And then we did like the dessert. We did like this date with like date ice cream with halva. So like it's like a sesame. It's essentially like a sesame cake. So Israeli cuisine is like the backbone is tahini or tahina, as they call it, and it's just sesame paste. So that was like, if you couldn't eat sesame, you could not come. Yourself. Yeah.
When we were traveling,
Yeah.
what were the factors you considered when you were choosing a restaurant to start?
Sorry, can you say that again?
When we were traveling around,
Yeah.
what were the factors you considered when you were choosing a restaurant to start? Like, would you go for more traditional or what?
Very good question. I think like I had by a mile were always the places that were very good and did like amazing food. Like they're definitely like, very good in my eyes. Like they were like very high standard and whatever. But they, what I really enjoyed about it is being a smaller place that let you like get really involved. Like my worst experience on the whole trip was I spent a month at this 3 Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco, and it was like, fucking hell, like every day, like we did like, there was like 10 stages there. Each of us like would be like done in an hour, and it was almost like sort of standing around like this all day, like, can we help? Nah. So that was shit. But then like in Mexico, which was like literally the next week I went, we were able to like get so involved and able to learn so much. And that was, like they had a small little team, and it was just like, oh cool, you're working with us. And, I went to this place in Belgium, and, I got each place, those last two places I mentioned, they both like said, do you want to work? And I was like, no, I want to keep going. But what was great, like the one in Belgium, they were so in the shit for staff that like I got there, I was the only stage, and it was like literally day one, here's your section, this is what you'll be doing, like here's the ordering list, here's, I'm thinking, fuck, it's all in Dutch, I don't speak Dutch, but anyway, and it was just like, you fully in the deep end, and if it wasn't, if you weren't sort of, if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't work out at all. But if you're like, how good is this opportunity to like be able to really get involved, then it was great. So yeah, anyone who hasn't done any stages before, or like, that is the like best thing by a mile, I think, to go and do, especially overseas. And like the greatest thing about it is like at the end of the week, like all the like, we went out like as a big group, like the whole kitchen team, they'd take you to places they'd recommend, or like, this is my favorite place to eat. just like, you know, in your hometown, if someone came and said, where are we going, you could just take them out and show them. And it's like a great way to travel because you get to almost be part of like a family. Like, you know, every kitchen, you know, is like a little family, and they really, well, if you go in and work hard and, you know, have a good energy, they'll really reward you by wanting to look, show you around. Yeah.
When you're travelling, how do you support yourself? You earn getting paid for restaurants and stuff?
So when I worked at the Clayton Bowls Club, I just saved, like knowing that if I'm honest, the original idea, I didn't have the intention to go and do all the stages originally. I took like all my work gear with knowing that I was like, oh yeah, no, I'll go and do something. But I was like, I'm not really that fast. But then when I got overseas and I like had done a few weeks, and I was like, okay, I'm a bit bored. Like I don't know what to do with myself. So then I just booked it all in, and yeah, it's actually a very efficient way. Like I just stayed in like cheap hostels, and you know, they obviously feed you breakfast, lunch and dinner. So it was just, yeah, work 5 days, and it was very little cost to doing that. And then on the weekend, you know, depending on where you were, obviously like in the States, it was obviously more expensive to go out because I really wanted to eat out and at other places and stuff. But you know, in Mexico City, like, wow, like you'd spend next to nothing staying there. Like it was like, I think the whole accommodation was maybe like $250 for the month, and it was nice, like a 1-bedroom place to myself. It was sick. And then on the weekend you'd go out and eat or whatever, and yeah. And then also another thing that like had benefited from doing the stages is like I wanted to eat at Pajul, so then I went with like one of the chefs from there. You know, obviously we couldn't have got the reservation otherwise, and then they fully hooked us up. Like it was just a good experience. I don't think it's an expensive, like obviously the flights and stuff can add up, but it wasn't like too expensive to go and do it, especially if you're like, you know, like I wasn't staying in like a 5-star hotels or anything. Yeah.
You need visas for that, or you just holiday visa?
I didn't get any visas, and like I actually got stopped at when I was 16. I got stopped and all my stuff confiscated off me because I was going from France to England at the train station, and they said like, what are you doing? And I was a bit honest. So, but like I wouldn't get, no one asks you for visas like at the restaurants. Like I probably shouldn't be giving advice on this, but as I'm saying this, I'm like, no, maybe don't say that, but whatever. Like I personally wouldn't, but yeah, I didn't have if I'm honest, I never had the intention to actually stay in any of the places either. So yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Guys, sorry, can I just jump in right there? I don't mean to be rude, but I know everybody's got questions. I've got questions too. I thought we might kick on with the cooking just a little bit. But keep the questions coming on. So,
Yeah, done.
I can do a bit of cooking if you want. I'll burn
Yeah.
something. But yeah, keep the questions coming, guys.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
No, it's all right, cool. Yeah, sweet. I'll just get started. We'll talk about the curry paste. So we'll make the paste. I've got the curry actually made, but I just wanted to sort of show you guys sort of the process of what we're doing, and just talk through some of the ingredients and what I've learnt in the few months we've been doing Thai cuisine. And then I also will show you this tom yum sort of soup dish that we're doing. You'll have this tomorrow night. It's probably one of my favourite things we've had on the menu for a long time. I think it's just a really delicious version of tom yum soup, because it's just everyone here, or maybe not, hasn't tried tom yum, but it can be like spicy and hot and all those sorts of things. And this is a chilled version with a sorbet, and it just works. It's really good. So does anyone here have any like experience with Asian cuisines? Or yeah, all right, good, yeah, cool, that's good. What's that? Yeah, sure, if you want.
Just gonna come on down.
Who's doing the mortar and pestling? You're up.
You've got your hand up.
Yeah.
And guys, if you want to come up and get a close look at what Charlie won't like.
No.
So this is the best part about the whole couple of days as far as I'm concerned. So come on up if you want to, or welcome to sit and watch the screen. So if you actually want to come on up.
All right, I think you got. There you are. Proud to be a chef apron there. All right, so yeah, the few things I've in Thailand there's two types of curries. So there's the fried curries, so you make a curry paste, as this is the one we'll be doing today. So it's the more technical of the curries, so you have to pretty much, you mortar and pestle everything down to a fine paste, you toast off all your spices, and then we just cook it out really slowly, and then we'll just prepare the garnishes as well. So it's eggplant and orange for this one. But yeah, like that's one of the probably more interesting things is like getting the balance right. So Thai cuisine, like having to balance flavors, that's something we haven't really experienced throughout the other cuisine. So, you know, is it sweet, salty, sour, bitter? Is it spicy? Is it umami characteristics? So that's always, you know, that's one of the fun things about changing, I suppose, is we have to season things differently, and that's something that the chefs in the restaurant really probably enjoy the most about what we're doing, because they go, oh, awesome, you know, we get to, one, learn about something new, but we have to think a bit differently, like how exciting to go, you know, one, you know, what are we making, how do we, you know, season it, and, you know, I'm not sure, like, anyone who works with, say, Western cuisines or European cuisines will know that, like, you know, putting sugar in savoury food is really just not that common. You know, you might use some sweet things, but, you know, it can be highly acidic instead, where with Thai cuisine, it's like you're adding sugar and, you know, even bitter elements into food, and you think, fuck, really? Like, it's crazy, but it just works. And that's why, I'm sure everyone here's eaten Thai cuisine before, but that's why it's just so exciting and it's got so much going on. I'm just gonna grab my knife, if I can put it in here. All right. So, we'll start with the curry paste. What's your name, sorry?
Poppy.
Poppy, Charlie, very nice to meet you. All right, so essentially with the curry paste, we will start with the firmest ingredients. So we've got galangal here. So very similar to, say, ginger in a way, just really, really hard and fibrous. So when you're pounding a curry paste, a lot of do it in a mortar and pestle, but it really makes, for me, all the difference. I think it's just it's definitely the only way. I find that just chopping everything up a bit first really, really helps, because it just takes a lot of the work out of it, especially things like galangal, lemongrass, even ginger can be a bit of a nightmare, because you just don't want the actual paste to be fibrous. So, you know, if you don't get this right, you have to strain it, but I feel like you can lose a lot if you do that. So you just want to start this. So just pound away. So while Poppy's doing that, we've got some spices I'll toast. Maybe you want to toast these off for us? Yeah, thank you. We'll get those pounded next. And then we've got the garlic and the shallots also. Are you annoyed you signed up for this now, or? No. All right, good. Perfect. All right. Any questions, guys? Keep going with the questions. I can work and talk. Yep.
When it comes to your standard recipes that you use
Yep.
in the kitchen, do you find you're keeping the entire time, or if you find a way to better it, do you change it?
100%. Yeah, we definitely change as we, like anything, you know, you work on it, make something a few times, and you're like, oh, you know, I wonder if I tweaked this or did it this way or whatever, and it just makes such a difference. So I find that that's something we change a lot. Another thing we do in the cuisine is get a few new ideas and then change actual dishes. And I think that's like the first dishes we put on for the menu, always, you know, we always make sure they're good, obviously. But what I feel like by the end of the cuisine, we've like got some really standout dishes, because it's like, all right, we've learned a lot about that now. We feel like we have a bit of knowledge, so what can we do? As opposed to when we start, we're a bit like, what do we make? Yeah. Next. Yeah. Yeah. Funnily enough, when I was actually in Israel, I got talking to these people, and they're like, oh, this guy, I know used to be a farmer here and he's moved to Australia. Maybe he can grow for your restaurant. And I said, oh, yeah, like Australia is a pretty big place, so maybe not. But I thought, okay, I'll follow it up. And just so happened, they're Australian guys, but they went and worked over there. Like the farming that they did in Israel was just crazy. Like growing food in the desert is just like very, very challenging, and they learnt a lot. So we don't work exclusively with them, because, you know, at the end of the day, they're like, you know, they're a small business, and we would not be able to sort of fund them, I suppose, that much. Is that me? Sorry about that. We wouldn't be able to fund them exclusively. So, but we definitely, like, for every menu, I've said, oh, can you grow something for it? So it's like, you know, can you grow Thai basil for us? Could you grow, like for the Korean menu, some of the daikons and stuff they grew were like unbelievable. But yeah, I think that working with the farms is like, it's just a good way to like actually connect with what you're doing, I suppose. Like it's too easy as a chef to just go, just get an ordering list and just order whatever you want in. But like the second you actually have to think about it, or like, what do we want to be cooking with a new menu? That's when it gets exciting. And I think that you're like a bit more like proud of what you're doing as opposed to just going up, whatever. Yeah. As much as possible, like, yeah, there's lots of it. Yeah, like we definitely do, but I feel like some things it's just not, it's not possible. But I feel like if you just use high quality ingredients in generally you're okay. And I think sometimes just because it's like everything we use is, we want to be sustainable. So like we're part of this program called Good Fish. So they have like a rating, like it's a traffic-like rating system on fish, and we just use the fish obviously that are in green, so sustainable. Red obviously we don't use, so things, you know, could be like tuna or things like that they don't want you to use. So that's always, thank you. That's always very important. But at the same time, I think, yeah, with our veg and stuff, it's just, yeah, it's always, yeah, we just buy the best shit we can get, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think I've gotten good at doing this, just like talking like that. I think that's a big thing. One thing this is a big moment is when we went to Brazil, we had like a guide take us around for the whole time, and that was like the best. It just made the trip 10 times better because we were able to like, you know, we're like, say, you know, I'm in your shoes and we've got someone cooking, we can really ask them like, what's that you're doing, what's this, like, and they can obviously maybe translate it, get it translated, but that like made all the difference. Where sometimes, sometimes like just sort of walking around trying to get an idea hasn't worked. So like, you know, for China next week, I've organised a guide for, I'm going to Beijing and Chengdu and Sichuan. So I've organised a guide on the first day for each of them, and then judge it from there, like whether I would like to get them to go again. But I feel like once you've sort of got a bit of, you know, like you got the feeling, you sort of know where you are, it helps a lot. But yeah, I've never gotten to the app world. I'm not that tech savvy, I don't think. So yeah. Yeah.
So when you're choosing a do you look at the whole region of the country? Because it's so vast. Like when you're in China, I went recently.
Yeah.
And I went to a few places, like cuisine just drastically changed.
Yeah. So funnily enough, up until this point, not really. Like I've always gone to like 2 or 3 places and thought, and seen the difference, and like on the menu we've said like this is sort of from here or this idea is from there, but it's always been like one country. Where with China there's 8 main cuisines of China, so we're going to pick 2 places, and it's like we're going to do 2 months of one and 2 months of another, and go like super hyper focused on those actual cuisines. Although that like a lot of the Chinese cuisines do have a bit in common, they are so different enough that I feel like it would be like a shame to not to not like sort of go and experience a bit more. Yeah. Yeah, Japanese. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of my favourites. Yeah, the tuna. But no, it's like they spend like 10 years learning to be a sushi chef. Like if I'm that arrogant to go over there and do that, I got a problem. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'd love to do it because I'd like love the flavours of it and stuff. But I feel that like, I don't know why, but I've always felt that way. Like I just don't touch it. It's like it's its own thing. It's rooted in so much tradition. And I suppose you could say that about a lot of other places. But Japan, I feel like just goes like beyond next level for just like focus. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you sort of doing a fusion of cuisine?
Yeah, like definitely. Like one of the ones that got me excited about that is when we cook Peruvian cuisine at Atlas. They have 2 different cuisines in Peru as well. So they have one called Nikkei, which is Japanese and Peruvian cuisine, which is actually like the restaurant Nobu. That's what the cuisine they cook there. So it's like really nice because you're seeing like Japanese flavors, but you've got things like sweet potato and, you know, quite like even quinoa and like those sort of funny like vegetables and stuff. So that was a really good one. And then in Peru, they also do chifra, which is Chinese and Peruvian cuisine. So that was like really interesting again to see this like Peruvian ingredients, like solidly Peruvian cuisine ingredients, and then using like soy sauce and, you know, vinegar and things like that. So that's when I think fusion is like really cool. But I think fusion can be like confusion sometimes. Yeah. I'd like to think like by the time we're done and it's all over that we could actually do Australian cuisine. I don't know how I feel about like restaurants who claim to be like say modern Australian, for example. I don't know, like there is something there, and like using native ingredients and bush foods and things like that is great. But for me, I just don't feel like we have like a cuisine yet. And I think it's a real shame. But at the end of the day, we are like a sort of like young country. What's that? Well, the Bunnings snack. I think they sold like 1 billion of those last year, I read. So maybe we do have a cuisine. It's served every Saturday only at Bunnings. But yeah, I think that I'd like to see a little bit more. But I think more and more people are realising that we are sort of in the region of Asia, and I feel like our cuisine is like leaning towards that because our climate can be, I'm sure you guys here, some of you are from say like Queensland or Northern Territory or WA, like the climate is just so good. It's it's fantastic. So that's what we should be cooking. Like, I don't know if we need to be doing European cuisine in Australia, but yeah, that's something I think we'll see a lot more of in the next few years. Hey, how you going there? Looking very good. All right, so we got chilies next. I use fresh chilies and I use some dried chilies for this. But I soak the dried chilies just for a couple of minutes in a bit of warm water. Eat them because they can be very hot, these ones. Any questions? Yeah, so we've got white pepper, there's cumin, some cardamom and cloves for this curry. I'll make sure I send the guys the recipe for this and show you all how to make it. Or my sample recipe, sorry, as I like to call it, because it always changes. One experience I had, I did a stage in Bangkok at Nam. Does anyone know where Nam was? It's David Thompson's restaurant. He's an Australian chef and like literally the like world voice on Thai cuisine. He actually wrote like the Thai cookbook that is their repertoire, and no one, like, it's unbelievable how much he knows about it. And when I did my stage there, I'll never forget, he rolls into the kitchen, as they're setting up for dinner service is just starting. He's just come off like a train from Chiang Mai in northern Thailand, rolls in a suit, like in this like 50-degree kitchen, like there's no extraction, like you realise how lucky you are to work in like a developed country when you're in a hot kitchen like that. Like they're not even sweating. I'm like I literally would look like fucking this the whole time. And then he walks in and he was making this jungle curry, and I just watched him like, they've made the paste, they've been cooking it out for a while, and then he he just kept seasoning it, and as he was going, it was just so incredible to see like for the first time someone just tasting, and then it needs to be a bit more sour, a bit more bitter, a bit more salty using fish sauce and those sorts of things. And that was like probably the most eye-opening, invaluable experience I reckon for me my whole career, just that watching him do that. And I feel like that's something that you can only get by when you're sort of traveling and experiencing.
Types of chili that Thai use predominantly, like compared to other Asian countries?
Yeah, they have like these little green chilies called scuds that can be really good. They're really, really hot though, like a little bit, like we go easy to be honest on those, because that's another thing that's like interesting I think about Atlas is that we have to almost like, I never want to say dumbing down flavour, but like making a cuisine work for our guests. Like, we're in a nice area of Melbourne, and our local clientele, like obviously you have to respect your guests and stuff. They want something like familiar, but they want something that they're like a little bit excited by, but it's not too wild. So that's been like one of the biggest challenges is finding that balance for our guests, because it can be it can just be hard sometimes when we're cooking Thai food at the moment. It's like, all right, how spicy do you actually want to go? Like, because when you're over there, they just go next level, but for us, it doesn't really work as well. So just one sec, we got everything. I can just add this in. That's for later. It's perfect. Very nice. Yeah. So, any other questions? Yeah. Go for it.
Traveled the world a lot,
Yeah.
obviously. Where's your favourite place in Australia?
Ooh, I've been to Tasmania twice in the last year. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's always one. Yeah, and that was my least favourite place. No, I'm joking. No, it was yeah, Tassie for sure. I've only spent time in Hobart when I was a lot younger. My family and I we went around like in a car, but I think the food scene's like really cool down there. I went and did that Dark Mofo festival for Mona. That was like really, it was just good. And like, you know, they've got like this guy down there called, his company's called Rough Rice, and he's like doing this like crazy fermentation. You go to the markets and they've got like the best produce I've seen, like by a long shot. Like everyone, just like, it felt to me like more like community. Like if you're a chef and you had the availability of like that produce, like some of the abalone and things like that, you're like far out, like very, very cool. So that's probably in Australia where I'd be a place I want to get a little bit more familiar with, sure, because it's a lot happening there. And you know, I think for a long time Tassie was not seen to be at like the same level, but it's really just gone crazy recently. Yeah.
Have you ever had a menu change or recipe been knocked back by your consumers? Like they hadn't really received well at all?
We've always found a way, but so yeah, we've always found a way. But I feel like there's definitely some that have been like, oh, fuck, like why, you know, why did we pick this? Or like, yeah, I'd say like Korean was definitely a bit of a random choice. Like there was guests who just loved it, or there were some people who just didn't get it. And it was like, I felt like that was with that one, that was a big thing. Where some of the others, like say Mexican, for example, like biggest crowd pleaser in history. Like that was a great choice. Yeah, looking very good. Yeah.
What made you want to be a chef?
What made me? To be honest, like I think my parents are both so shit at cooking that I like, yeah. Yeah, like I'm not even embarrassed to say, and they would admit that like first. They're just like shocking. So that inspired me a lot to like, you know, start asking questions, or like, you know, what can I make, or what can I learn? And yeah, it all started like that. I used to love when I was younger, like say Boiling Point of Gordon Ramsay's documentaries on say YouTube and stuff, like all that. I was very inspired by all that. Like a lot of just seeing like what I respected was how intensely they all worked in the kitchen. Like I think it was just like such an eye-opener, like for someone who like wasn't really enjoying school that much, to see that, and then you're like see these guys in the kitchen who are a lot older, like true professionals, and it's like it was almost like an army, like how they worked. And that, I think that was a big inspiration to see, to see that. And to be honest, as I've gotten older and like worked in the industry a lot more, like I don't value that side as much. I'm not really that interested in working like that. Like I believe in like very much in like work-life balance and having fun and sort of doing what you want. Like that part of me's definitely changed, where like when I was there, they are like so strict, it's almost like takes the joy of cooking away. But yeah, I suppose that's when you're young, it's a good thing to see for sure. Yeah.
Are there any chefs that you still look up to a lot? Or?
Yeah, like there's definitely, yeah, like there's so many chefs out there like I look up to, but I think that the meals that I'm most impressed with now generally are the more simple ones. Like when you go somewhere and it's like just stupidly good versions of something. Like I was in Hong Kong a few months ago and I went to this Yat Lok. It's like a Michelin star roast goose place, and like we literally had roast goose and noodles, but it was like so unbelievably good that it was just so memorable. And that to me is like what's exciting, I suppose. Sorry, 1 second. Thank you. Yeah, so that's what's, I suppose, exciting me. But you know, I think one thing, I'm sure you guys are all on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. I love like going on there and, you know, seeing what other people are doing and getting inspired that way. Like I think that's a really good tool to see what's happening. Like I think it's really important to know what's going on in the industry, I suppose, and that's a great way. Yeah. Yeah.
What would you define as your personal touch on each dish you made?
What's that?
How would you define your own
Personal
personal touch on each dish you made?
touch
Yeah,
on the
how would you
dishes?
define it? Like, do you have anything that represents you as a chef that you add to each dish?
Well, we did. I've written a cookbook, and we did like today before I got here. We did like the first shots of the book, and it was really like although the book is like written for home, I think there's always like a real, especially with the photos we did today, I felt like there's always like a real sort of style that we go for, whether it's a plating or presentation or ways we cut things. And yeah, I think that like the more I've gone on, that it's the more simple I've wanted to be with it. So I'd say like sort of simplicity is what I'd like to say now, where before it was a lot more, probably a lot more like technique driven and stuff. But I think the one benefit of being, a small place with a small team is that, and you're busy, you have to be almost time saving. You don't have time to fuck around. So it's good. That's defined the style a lot. This is a bit of chili oil. We are making a red curry, so we go pretty hard on this. Whenever we're cooking the curry paste, we just go really low. I'll grab that. Very good job. Thank you. How's your arm? Good. Good. Yeah. Good stuff. So deal with that. So we make this red chili oil. So what we do is we get dried chilies, and we actually dry them again overnight, so at 60 degrees in the oven. The reason we do that is you want them to be like ridiculously dry. I think you might have noticed when you get dried chilies, they can still be a bit like flimsy. These in the morning after the 60 degrees will literally crack. I'll just get you to wash this, dry it with the tea towel, and just pound all this. I might just hit this one first. Thank you, and just crack it, and we'll take all the seeds out of it. Thank you. Yeah, so the by what? Sorry. Yeah, like definitely the heat. Yeah, the dried chilies can give off a lot, but it's just at the end of the day, it's a red curry, and I want to make it really as red as I can. And these are like some of the funny things. Like when we were exploring, like we tried like juicing capsicums and things like that to get it really red. Like we want it to be red, but now I've found that this works really well, and just using the red oil, and it gives this really good example. When we learnt to do this was when we did Brazilian cuisine. They use palm oil a lot. So we didn't use palm oil, but we made a spiced vegetable oil using annatto seed. So annatto seed is what makes like sort of red food. Not food dye, but just red dye in general. Thank you. And then also paprika. So we put that through the oil, and then we just let it. We slowly heated it to, I think it was like 70 degrees. Left it there for about an hour to infuse, and strained it, and you had this like glowing red oil. So once again, it's like, all right, cool. How do we, we learned something there that's now on the menu here. Yeah. Yeah. So we only use fish sauce at the moment for our saltiness, but we pretty much with this curry, you start with the paste. The coconut milk that we make is semi-sweet, I suppose. But then when you're seasoning at the end, that's when it's like important to find the balance. Because I feel like, say for example, lime juice, like if you cook it, it loses its acidity. Like fish sauce does, obviously once you put it in there, it does remain, you keep that saltiness. But you can add a bit of sugar and balance that out, or the spice, we can add a bit of sweetness and tone that back a bit. But a lot of the tasting happens at the end, not the start. Yeah. And so we make this coconut milk here. So we just get some dried coconut, we soak it, and then we blitz it with water. So very similar in style to like how you'd make like an almond milk or macadamia milk or whatever. So we use this at the moment. I really like it. I just think it's a good addition to just a nice way to use coconut, and also a pretty, it just gives a lot of freshness. I'm really not that keen on using like the sort of any of like the canned or coconut. Let's turn this up a bit. Yeah, coconut cream or milk like from any of the cans or tins or anything. It's not really. I think it tastes pretty average. Yeah. I don't know. I think to be honest, I think for apprentices, it is what you make it. But like these sort of programs are like out there to give people who want to like have a really good career a chance. So I think being probably a similar age to a lot of you guys is probably a big benefit. That you know, because I'm only 25 now and I was 22 when we opened Atlas. Yeah, so that's like a big thing, I suppose. So being you know, being like, I have worked in the industry for 10 years now, so it's a decent go. But I really like the idea that I can sort of probably relate to a lot of you guys a lot more, as I probably as a similar age group, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, that smells amazing.
Final?
Yeah, that's really good. All right. Perfect. Just leave a little bit of that. I might add a little bit more later, but I don't want to go too early. Yeah. Yeah, that was like probably the hardest bit about it, to be honest. Like, it was to adapt to it was really challenging. Like, it was, I'd never had much experience with it, and Lennox like has no like gas or electricity in the kitchen. They do secretly have one induction, I will say, that was always full. But like, it was a great, like, at the time when I started, I really didn't like it because I thought, you know, it was so difficult and whatever. But then once I got into the swing of it, I loved it, like, you know, and learned a bit about it. I loved the challenge. And I think that working somewhere like that is like focused on like a technique or something, you know, that really that really taught me like how to cook. Like, they do have quite a protein heavy menu. So like, if you're just on like a grill section on a flat top, it's the same each day, right? It's quite easy to do it. But there, it was like, you know, you really had to think about like how hot's the oven, what wood you're using, how hot the grill is the grill like hot from what you'd previously been cooking? Like, for example, you could very easily, like, say, have a piece of fish in the rack, touch it on the grill, or the bars are so hot that it would just give off all that sort of heat, and you can cook things that way. So it's like, it made you like really think about what you're doing, as opposed to just like simply like, you know, if you walk over here, just turn this on, press go, it's always the same. And like, although we have like a combi oven and we use a bit of induction at Atlas now, I really like the philosophy of sort of having to actually cook too. Yeah. You had a question? Oh, fuck, which one? There's just like, definitely stupid shit. Like, there'd be what was it? I can't even, which one was it? When we did our BAS, like our tax for everyone, and like we were paying it on a 3 month, so we were paying it on a monthly thing, and it changed to 3 months. So like, you know, just being flimsy, forgot about it, whatever. 3 months comes around and it was like, oh my fucking God, how are we going to pay this? But then, you know, you have to just work, and you know, the things I've learned is it's like, because we're only open a short amount of time in the week, like we're not open all the time, you know, 5 nights a week is pretty cruisy. I've learned that the weeks of the year we are open to be actually open and to be there and whatever. So yeah, like, I think that with a business, like the whole thing that you have to wrap your head around is it's all about like cash flow. You just need like people coming and dining, obviously spending money, having a great experience, leaving, and then, you know, you'll get all your bills for what you've done for that week. And it's just like learning to like manage that has been a big challenge. Like, it sounds like it's so many people, they just think, oh, it's so basic, you know, how hard could it be? And then you like wait till you spend like 10 grand a week on wine or something, and it's like, oh my God, like you're not talking with $50 anymore. So it gets really full on. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything you do that you know now wishing you could start?
I think to enjoy, like, if it's like a rough time, like, it's like to enjoy that part of the process a bit more. Like, you know, I'm very now, like, I'm very open now to sort of being, so I'm going to turn this up a bit. 171, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm very open now to, like, you know, if we've had a hard week or something broke or something, just like taking it as it comes and just going off, whatever, like, and move on, and like, don't sweat the small stuff, essentially. Where I think when I was a lot younger, I was like, you know, if you'd have a hard week or something, like there's an issue at work or something, it always really annoy me, and it would like get into my like sort of life. You'd be like, you wouldn't communicate it to someone. You just be like, oh, you know, whatever. This person's being a prick, or you know, I'm annoyed at this, and just it build up and build up and build up. Where now I'd just be very honest with anyone. Like if I'm very like, you know, if I'm annoyed at someone at work, I just have the communication, just go and say it, and everyone appreciates it, as opposed to letting it bottle up. Probably like open communication and just like enjoy it. Like even when it is a bit hard, enjoy it, and like don't quit. Pretty much. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I will say one that we did French cuisine last winter, and it was good. I was excited by it because we hadn't done a European cuisine, but I was really bored. Like I was like, oh, like what? I felt like I'm not that excited by the cuisine in general. I feel like it's a bit plain, and you know, there's so much history and so much to learn, and you know, you need to French cuisine is a great place to start when you're cooking, to actually get the skills you need to cook. But I don't. Yeah, when we did it in the restaurant, I was like, oh, really? Like, I felt like a bit uninspired. Where Chinese, I'm already every night reading a book or looking up things and wanting to learn, because it's there's a million things to learn. Where I feel like French I had a good understanding of, so I was a bit and I like cooking with spice and a lot of flavour, and just throwing shit in and having a bit of fun. So yeah, where French is, I felt like it was a bit mathematical almost. Yeah. 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 Well, that's it. That's it. I just done it, and that's why I think that I work. You know, that's why I think Atlas is a good, place for me to remain excited. I don't know. Some people just love doing the same thing. They love focusing and really mastering that, and that's so perfect for them. But for me, I know what I'm like. I get I just be bored, and I just want to I know how much more there is to learn. I feel I'd rather, for me, I know they say, it's good to focus, and sure it is, but I also know that I like to have experience in a lot of different things and enjoy that because it's fresh and new. Yep. I feel like it's pretty fresh, to be honest. Because we do, 4 months of the cuisine, and there's certainly elements that we make every day and we get really familiar with. It just feels sort of almost second nature. I can remember things from all of them. It just gives you a very broad knowledge. That's what I really like. I'm not sure if you don't reading cookbooks for me is is something I love doing. But when you're reading something, you're sort of oh yeah, okay, cool, that sounds good. But then if you're putting things into practice and actually learning the technique properly, then you sort of know it in that way. But yeah, for sure, there's there's a million ways to make a curry paste. There's a million ways to do everything. So I just find what works for me, and that we sort of stick with it. Yeah. To be honest, I'm shocking at that. I'm always on. I'm very I think because I really like what I do and I really enjoy it. I don't really need to switch off necessarily, because I see it as almost fun, I suppose. But at the same time, I one big thing I've loved doing, especially recently, is getting very back into doing my exercise, just things like cardio or running, or going out with friends, especially I'm really happy that I have so many friends that are not in the industry too, because it's nice to go out with them and hear about what they're doing, talk about that or other things. It's very easy to get in the world where you hang out with chefs all the time and it's all you do is talk about food. So I think that's a good thing. Obviously we all love hearing about food and stuff, but it's good to turn it off sometimes, for sure. Yeah. Oh, I'm like the biggest popcorn person in history. I've a fucking addiction. I swear to God, it's like I've stopped buying it and having it at home because it was getting out of hand. Every night, coming home like, oh, I don't know where I'm going. So, yeah, but like, funnily enough, it sounds very odd, and I'm not sure about you guys. I don't want to assume, but I don't cook at home at all. Yeah, ever. Yeah, I've lived in my house now for almost up on a year. I've not once cooked or eaten there. I know that's a big thing. I just don't do it. I don't enjoy, like, why would I cook at home when I can like have a restaurant kitchen with everything I want? Like, where at home you got a tiny stove and it's like you have no spices, you have no dry store. I'm like, fuck that. I'd rather let someone else cook for me. Yeah, so I cook out the curry paste just a little bit, add in our coconut milk that we made, and then we'll just simmer that. So that's pretty much it for this, but I've got one here. It's a bit thicker because we've reduced it down a fair bit, and I'll end up probably just mixing the two and seasoning it up and letting everyone try it. And then this one's going to go with orange and eggplant that we'll plate it with, and then we've got some kaffir lime to go in it, and then we'll move on to this. All right, do you want to have a go cutting this kaffir lime?
Sure.
All right, so this is another thing that is always a disaster, but it can be to get it right. But I think it's really important. Kaffir lime leaves are very delicious, and one of my favourite, definitely one of my favourite ingredients, and something that's been really exciting about cooking Thai cuisine, because they're just so flavoursome, and they just add so aromatic. So we want to use them. We want to use them raw as a garnish, but we also, to use them raw, you have to slice them thin enough. So I'll show you the first one. So we just stack them up like this, and then fold them. And then with our knife, you need a very sharp knife. You have to just come and just slice them into very, very thin hairs.
These are the same leaves you added. You already added some to the curry.
Yeah, I added some whole, which I'll take those out. So we just want, just the aromatic thing. But this, like this sort of hair, you just sprinkle over on top. Like this is even borderline. You want to go as fine as possible. And you get like, when you're using something like this, it is fibrous. If you don't cut it with some thought and skill, it can really, it can really ruin it. Like it's just not, no one wants to eat fibrous. It's just like sandy textures, fibrous textures, and just never good. So, Poppy, you're up. There you go. Thank you. So use that there.
So stack up, fold in half.
Stack up, fold in half, yeah. Thank you. And yeah, really like it. Hands like this, take your time and just like go slow. All right, I'm just gonna grab the laptop. Let's just look at the recipe for this one.
Still learning this recipe.
Making sure I've got everything in it before I teach it. Like, to be honest, pretty fucking cruisy. We started about 12 usually. And then we just we come in, set up for the day. It's always, we listen to music all day. Like music's a big part of our work. Like we always want to everyone hates any time I put the music on, but like everyone obviously loves their own music. So we, and we just we have a lot of fun through it. We have staff meal. Like generally speaking, the front of house team, they'll sit down and eat. Like for us, we're not, I don't know, I feel like we're just, it's looking good. Very good.
That's what it
Yeah, it's really good. For us, it's a lot more, we just, I don't know, we like to just be set up for service. Like we've had too many times where we haven't been set up. So we've learnt, don't fuck around till the end. And then we usually, do service, and then we'll all after service, like the whole kitchen team, we always just go outside and sort of chill out for 20 minutes, half an hour, and we'll just chat. And it's pretty cruisy. I just try and make it fun. Like it's not meant to be, we should be having fun. Like we're not having fun, sort of, what's the point? Nah, see that, I couldn't be bothered with it. Like I'd actually hate it. So I want to make it enjoyable. And that's how that's another reason why I've been able to have the same team for so long, is because we do actually have a lot of fun. And like, you know, don't get me wrong, there's always times like in any workplace where there's be like a bit of a tiff or someone doesn't like someone or someone calls someone a bitch or whatever, but yeah, we get over that. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. I'll come back to you. Yeah.
What's some definite
must-reads? This is for the tom yum. So yeah, that one's fine. Let's this is the pre-made one, but let's pretend this is tomato water. So to make tomato water, what we do, I forgot to bring it. We blitz tomatoes and then hang it until we get this clear liquid. So what we did here is just some chilies, some garlic, some kaffir lime, and then some fried shallots. And we just pretty much pound it down, and then we infuse it. And I'll put a bit more kaffir lime in. This is like one of the really fun things that we've like created is this. So using the tomato water, it's uncooked and it's fresh, and then having things like fried shallot, chopping garlic, lemongrass, and then just infusing it. So we infuse it overnight and then strain it, and then you're left with this, and it's just like super tasty. And then we just balance this out with lime juice, fish sauce, and a touch of sugar, a touch of palm sugar, sorry. And then this curry over here is coming along nicely, so I just leave that on for a bit longer. I might blend the sorbet, if that's all right. Is that, oh, it's over here, is it? Perfect. So I've got, yeah, for you who aren't familiar with it, it's just like a pretty... So we get these tomatoes here, we just quickly blanch them. I will have recipes actually printed out for you all tomorrow and show you what I made. But what we do is this is a mixture of 70% salt and 30% sugar. So we start like this, obviously in a deeper container. I'm just doing this just to show you. Cure them. So we cure them overnight, and this will just suck a lot of the moisture out. And then we just literally put a little bit of water and a little bit of palm sugar in the once we blitz these, and that's all we use. Yeah. And then and there is a per Paco Jet we use 1/4 teaspoon of sorbet stabilizer. Yeah. So really like simple little sorbet. Because it is a savoury dish and it's the first course on the menu, we try and not make it obviously too sweet. So that's like, you know, to get like, you know, tomato can already have sweetness, and then, you know, once you are making a sorbet, you want it to be sweet too. So like getting that balance right has been a big thing. But yeah, curing the tomatoes in a lot of salt is like, it's not salty, but it gives a real savouriness to them. And by sucking out a lot of the juice, I think it's got like meaty tomato flavour. Yep. What are my pet hates? Pet hates, it's a good one. What's that, someone using my knife? Yeah, I don't know. Like, it annoys me a bit, but like at the same time, it's a good reason to go and sharpen them again. So, no, pet hates, I think my biggest pet hate, it's like not really anything to do with food, I suppose, is shit attitude. Like people who come in like at work and just always, I don't know, just not 100%, that really, really annoys me. Like I feel like everyone has their days obviously, but I think it's important for people to, you know, when you're at work to just be there and giving it your all. So that really annoys me. Like, and I think like that's, you're like a business owner, like, you know, you've got to look after everyone and you want everyone to be happy running a business at the end of the day. And it's like, so it just almost a little bit disrespectful sometimes if people like come in and they're not 100%. So this here, we just put some like spring onion on the bottom, which has just been shredded up. Put some of this kaffir lime, and then we put some chopped up chilies. This here. So yeah, that just emulsifies really nicely. Curry's cooking well. Just come behind you. Yeah, so this, yeah, as I said, this is the first course. We've got some Thai basil oil, so we just in the Thermomix blitz some Thai basil and a bit of parsley together with oil, and we just heat it up to 100 degrees and strain it through a cloth, and we get this like really vibrant green oil that just makes a dish. And then I also have here somewhere some Thai basil. So this is these are the Thai basil, the flowers on the actual stem. So when you're like picking herbs, sometimes you see like these little clusters. In Thai cuisine, it's like really important to use those. They use those a lot in curry paste. We use them in this dish, and you just get these like, they sort of like little flowers or little berries, And they're like for us what we want on this dish. So we go pretty hard on them because it's just a, just a nice element. They just have like, for something so little, when you bite into one, it's just got so much flavour. So that is, that's good. All right. So we just rocher the sorbet or ice cream nicely, and then that's the dish. So so that's how it comes out to the table. Then we're just using this, we'll just pour this in. So this is a tom yum, and we just go like this. So you get this like clear soup with a sorbet, and that's it. Really like simple, but a nice way to it's a nice way to like showcase what the actual, what the dish is without sort of going, we're having a bit of fun with it. Yeah, it's really like cold and nice and fresh.
So the soup is you serve it cold with the sorbet?
Sorry? So this is this is frozen, and then this we serve that chilled as well.
Okay,
cool. Definitely. Just so it doesn't melt and it just keeps it just keeps it really nice. And like, because it's it's so hot outside at the moment, like when you sit down, you just want something like super refreshing and light. So I think this is it's a great dish to sort of do that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you make the tomato just by hanging it and then
Brush it really, really nicely like that. And we just go in this fryer. Usually I would have, like if it was at Atlas, we'd have our fryer probably just a little bit hotter. This goes to 190, but I would say do this at say 200, because if you do it at a colder temperature, like it's going to take longer to get the skin to where you want it to be, which then in turn can probably cook it a bit further. Might not be a bad thing, but you can see how it does cook quite quickly. All right, let me just in there, here.
How limited are you by protein when you choose which cuisine, or do you often take the techniques and use those when protein
Like for each cuisine, there's definitely like there's different proteins they're eating, right? So like I feel like like in Thailand they say they eat like a fair bit of pork, so that would be like an obvious choice. So that will definitely influence the menu. But there's things that I would go for more than others. Like I'm not that mad on using beef on the menu. I just haven't really, like we've done it a few times, but I just haven't found it like to be my favourite choice. And I think it can be a little bit boring almost, especially like if you're going out for a steak or something, like great, then that's what you're looking for. But for us, it's like I don't know. I just feel like you can sort of get that anywhere. Like a lot of tasty menu places do that. So I like. I might stick with quail or duck or even lamb sometimes or pork. And I feel like, that's where, like we use Flinders Island lamb a lot, and that like, it's so beautiful as a product that like, I reckon it actually would be more delicious than eating, say, beef. But then we have, like we have guests, say like we have a lot of Asian guests who come in and they're not massive, they're not massively into lamb, for example. So we might give them beef instead. So yeah, that fries there, so I'll let that rest just for a minute or so. Warm this curry back up. Red oil, so nice. Put this spice in there. So it needs a bit of lime, so can you just cut this into some cheeks for me? I'll just quickly cut off some palm sugar as well. Thank you. Just quickly cut a bit of this off first if you don't mind. So yeah, we use, like I said, using sugar, which is like really, it's like for us, like first time using a lot of sugar in your cooking. It's a really nice, like fun ingredient to use, but it's such a weird thing to be adding sugar, I suppose. But palm sugar is just so delicious, so we use that a lot. We can use, we can use orange, like we can use orange juice if we want. We use a lot of lime juice at the moment, as you can imagine. Yeah, with our lime juice, it's something that we're doing to always finish the curries. Like I never add it in and then really cook it again. I find it just flavour just goes shit, and it's just not nice. Get in there. So I'll add a bit of fish sauce next as well. So this curry that I'd made previously had some fish sauce added. It definitely needs a bit more. Fish sauce is one of those things that like, it's it's such a long process to make. We have looked at doing it ourselves, but I feel that like there's so many good options, and some chefs are really, they want to use say like this certain type, and we used to use this Vietnamese fish sauce. It's like almost like a virgin fish sauce, so it's like olive oil, so it's like their first press, so it's like a bit thicker and it's really delicious and stuff. But with this menu, I felt that like even something like squid brand is something you'd see everywhere, and it gives you the flavour you want. So you can be picky as you want, but alright, so it's getting there, pretty good. Another bit more lime, 2 more. Thank you, we'll cut that next. And a bit more sugar. So yeah, this is something, in a service we'd have things like, you always obviously have your lime squeeze before service. We have like palm sugar, we cut it all down and then we boil it in water so we can add it as a liquid. It's a really handy way of doing it. We use a lot of tamarind at the moment for a bit of bitterness as well. So tamarind's a good one. And then, and even like we've done some good other bitter elements. So we've like dried oranges and made them into powders and stirred those through it. It's really good to look at all your ingredients and see what other things you can, what other things you can add. Like, Thai food, it doesn't need to just be the standard ingredients. All right, that's good. So yeah, this quail, first I'll take the legs off. So you guys will all get to try this dish correctly tomorrow night. So we got a beautiful pink quail, like I told you guys before, from doing that technique.
He just walked off without the camera over.
Yeah, that's right. Start with this. And then, let's get this a little bit hotter. So yeah, we have that quail. And as you can see, that steaming technique, it's just beautifully cooked through. It's absolutely perfect. And you saw how simple it was for me. And like you look at obviously the quality. If anyone who wants to taste curry, feel free. I've only got a couple of spoons, but go for it. First in, best dressed.